Let's go live, I think. I guess we're about ready, actually. Well, good evening, everyone. It's a nice, foggy and chilly day out here on the Front Range. Perfect time, I think, for a Halloween stream. Let me know if the volume is all right for you. Actually, just a moment here. Hello? Hello? All right, well, I am. Just a second here. www.ndhfilms. No, I'm sorry. www.youtube.com/ndhfilms/live. I have to get. I have to. Well, yeah. Well, www.youtube.com/ndhfilm. www.youtube.com/ndhfilms/live. Uh, all right, I can't track of everything. All right. Yes. All right. I'm very sorry about that here. Hope everyone's still there. Just had some technical problems. Anyway, yeah, so apparently the sound is good. As I was saying, it's a cloudy and chilly evening here on the Front Range. And, yeah, excellent time for a Halloween stream. Let's see here. Got some people in the YouTube chat. Glad to see that. Just a moment. Okay. I'm glad people could show up. Tonight, I had a couple things I wanted to do. As always, I want to remind people that Nantucket eBooks is here to make it easier for authors to create and share the best ebooks on the planet. Tonight, be sure, if you're not already, to like, subscribe, and become a patron. You can do that. Subscribe on YouTube. My social is on Mastodon, at Nantucket eBooks, at fostodon.org. Something new that I've set up is you can subscribe on RSS. I know a lot of people like RSS as a way of enjoying things on the web, and so you can subscribe and get updated on new books on the site by going to YouTube, by going to nantucketebooks.com/ebooks/rss.xml. If you'd like to become a patron, you can go to patreon.com/Nantucket eBooks. I will have time for a Q&A at the end of this. You can ask questions in a variety of ways. You can go to the YouTube chat right here on YouTube. You can send an email to njb@nantucketebooks.com. You can send me a message on Mastodon. You can also reach me on IRC. If you're on that, you can go to the LibreChat network. My channel is Nantucket eBooks. So a variety of ways that we can connect here. Always happy to answer people's questions. Tonight's stream is going to be pretty short, but a lot to cover. I'll be talking about some publications that have come out of Nantucket eBooks this month, and I'll be doing a short live reading in commemoration of the Halloween season. First thing I wanted to talk about is a new novel that's on the website. It's called The Woethief by Seth Patterson. You might know Seth Patterson. He previously published on this site under the name Riley Duffield, and he's been publishing on the site for a while now. He's written some really excellent short stories, including Cocoon was an early one that I really enjoyed. Another was True Love's Kiss, which was sort of a launch title for version 2 of the software that I thought was really neat. And some others include Operation Firestorm and The Last Bridge. He's also done a comic book adaptation of Cocoon. This novel is also illustrated by Autumn Patterson. She was previously known as Dios Ubi on the site. And I was tremendously excited about this book. I've always really liked Seth's writing. He's very imaginative, and he's an excellent storyteller. So I like that he can combine good world building and good narrative. They don't always go together, but they really go together well with him. And The Woethief is really centered around one question, which is if somebody could take away other people's pain and shame, would that make people better or worse? And I found that a pretty compelling question, and I think he explores that within the frame of the narrative very well. And I was very excited to be involved in publishing that. As a matter of fact, let's take a look at it right now. I have it open in this tab here. If you want to go to see this on my website, you can go to nantucketebooks.com/Woethief, and I will highlight it right there. And you should see that at the bottom of your page. But here it is on the website. A wonderful cover here by Autumn Patterson. Her illustrations are an important part of this book. And something that makes this book quite special, one of the technologies that is available in my ebooks that you really won't find anywhere else is something called flippable images. Some people prefer to read in dark mode, which is where the text inverts like so. And you can read, some people find that easier to read at night or easier to read in general. The Woethief is the first book to be published on the platform that was designed from the start to take advantage of this technology. I'll show you an example here. So here is the first illustration in the story showing Woethief, the main character, fighting Encore. And these are wonderful black and white illustrations. They look very sharp and crisp. So watch what happens when I click on dark mode here. You'll see that the image flips along with it. If I click again. And so this is the same image. It's just inverting the colors. It becomes white on dark instead of dark colors on white. And so there's no actual background. It's a PNG file. It's transparent. There's a transparent background, so the background will come through the image. And that makes it really feel like it's part of the book, that it's not like, here's text and then you have an image. It really feels like it's integrated into the book, and in the tradition of a physical book. And so when you're reading at night, the image still really shows through. I'm going to go up here because we have a table of contents for our illustrations as well as our chapters. I believe it's this one. Yes. This is, just on a personal level, this is my favorite illustration in the story. I think the character really comes through here. And if we click on dark mode, you see it. And so I really like how the illustrations feel really integrated into the book. It helps, it doesn't distract from the story. And as with another part of my site, you can click on these illustrations and it will isolate it from the rest of the book. And we'll give a little caption here. It says, Woethief played with her twilight orb. And then it can close that. And that's like the beautiful illustration plates that you would find in old antiquarian books. Let's see, I'll find another illustration here. I'll go back up to the table of contents. Woethief spilled a drink. Yeah, we have that here. So I get that. If I click on it, and then I can click on it again, and I can look at the image separately. You can see there's no background there. I just think that's, I just really like that. And so that is the Woethief. We had a special deal on the site. People could pre-order the book and get their name listed as a supporter. Same thing I had done with Small Things, which was our first commercial release this year, poetry collection. And so at the end of this book, if you were a supporter, you had your name listed, and really grateful to those people. The ebook is just part of the Woethief. If I could grab it here. This is the second part. And I'm going to highlight this here, bring up my broadcasting page so I get it framed correctly. So this is our comb-bound paperback edition of the Woethief. You can see that there. I think this turned out magnificently. The Seth and Autumn's names up there. And so I have a special process that takes the Shinty markup language that I used to write the ebooks, format it for printing. And it involves separating it into pages and some other things. But then the end result is you get a book that you can then cut to size, cut in half, and it folds perfectly into these books. And here is, I'll try to, maybe that'll be a bit blurry. That is our the text. I think it looks absolutely beautiful. One reason for that, it's all vector graphics for the text. So it's really sharp and crisp. Looks really nice on the page, and we use this heavier paper. Feels good in your hands. It's not like printer paper, really. So we were selling this as well. We've sold a number of autographed copies. We've also sold some other regular copies. It goes for $8.99 on the site. And very pleased. And here we have the back. On the back, got some of the opening lines that Seth wrote. We last died 87 days earlier. As we clutched our baton, its silk-wrapped hilt grounded us in our environment. We just need to win 2 more fights. I'll steady your nerves, Woethief, one of our 2 personalities, thought. She stole Nyla's nervousness so Nyla could concentrate. Thank you, Woe, Nyla replied. We will be free soon. And here is the description of the book. Nyla Woethief has 2 minds and an unborn child to protect. She longs to be free from her mistress, Gemma, who forces her to steal people's bad memories. If she wins the next 2 duels, she will become princess. Will that be enough to free her from Gemma and her treacherous ex-husband? Does an insectoid girl who haunts her dreams offer hope or danger? So that is the Woethief. If you are interested in getting a physical copy, you can order it by going to nantucketebooks.com/order. That's where we've been doing it, and that's really worked out. Online payment is through Stripe, and that's been a good system to use. So that is the Woethief. I've been very pleased to be a part of it, and it's been getting some very good traffic on the site, so I'm very pleased about that. Next up, I have the 4th issue of Quarter Up. Quarter Up, I will bring up here, is our online newsletter for pinball and video and retro arcade gaming. This is our 4th issue for the fall, Volume 2, Fall 2023. This cover was done by Brad Albright, very talented illustrator. I wanted to do something a little different for this cover, and I was very glad to find his artwork, and very grateful to Brad Albright for licensing this to us. In this particular issue, we've got the history of the arcade game Nibbler. This was written by Lee Lintersey, and it was a very early snake game. I think all of us remember the little snake games on our phones back before smartphones. This was sort of a precursor to a lot of those games. So that's an excellent article. Then I interviewed Steve Mitchell. He is a repairman down in Colorado Springs. He owns Classic Amusements. I heard about him from our color commentator Buffalo, who owns a couple pinball machines out on the plains. And he couldn't say enough good about Steve Mitchell, so I interviewed him, and he ended up being quite an interesting guy. Then we have a promo from A.T. Gonzalez about Houston Arcade Expo 2023. He went last year and covered it for Quarter Up, and this is a promo for this year. He'll be covering the event. And I think we have another writer from Quarter Up who's going to be there as well. So that'll be a lot of fun. Here's some pictures from last year. And as always, we have our events calendar, and then we capped the issue with our commentary from Buffalo. He talked about how blues music and pinball are 2 things you'll find across different human cultures. So that's a very nice little wrap-up from him. And you can find that, I don't think I put it on here, but you can go, it's in the description for the stream, the link to Quarter Up issue 4. You'll also find it on the front page of the site, nantucketebooks.com. So that's added up to a quite busy October, publishing a full novel from Seth Patterson and a 4th issue of Quarter Up. A.T. Gonzalez will be at the Houston Arcade Expo next month, and so will Brad Albright as well, so that should be fun. With Halloween coming up in a few days, I wanted to let people know about some horror, paranormal, and weird stories on Nantucket ebooks that you can read for free. I wanted to start with some of the authors who use the site. We'll start with the two from David W. Stoner. One would be his story, The Dark Forest, which is an excellent short story, and his short story, Gypsy, which was one of the very first stories published on Nantucket ebooks. That's a good one, too. I wouldn't necessarily call the next two horror, but they definitely have a lot of the weird in them, and I mean weird in the older sense of the word, the uncanny, and things that are beyond the normal. I don't mean it as a negative. I mean, like the old magazine Weird Tales. So Cocoon by Seth Patterson, and then The Woethief, which we just discussed. If you want some excellent reading that will take you beyond the conventional, I highly recommend those two stories for the season. Can't help but plug a couple of my own stories. I have Then a Skeleton Popped Out and The Trash Man. The skeleton one is about a high schooler out on the northeastern plains of Colorado who starts to think that the skeleton in the high school biology lab maybe looks a little bit too real. It's about how he handles that situation. Then The Trash Man is about a train conductor in Denver who is obsessed with apprehending a man who gets onto his train with bag after bag of disgusting garbage. And he becomes absolutely consumed with finding this man and stopping him because running a clean and orderly train is so core to his identity that the trash man's mere existence is an affront to him. So I'm very fond of those two, and I really like all of these. I love David Stoner's work. Seth Patterson is great, and I have my bias. I like those two stories of mine as well. And it's interesting to look at that. Such very different writing styles we all have, but I really like Seth's work and David's work. Highly recommend you check them out. If you go to our main page of the site and then click Catalog, you'll be able to see all of them. So if you want some weekend reading ahead of Halloween, you won't go wrong. And then we have our public domain stories. I'll go through these quickly. These are some of the horror stories and stories of the weird that you'll find on Nantucket ebooks for free. We have The Dunwich Horror by H.P. Lovecraft, part of his Cthulhu mythos. That's a very recent addition to the site. Then we have Dracula's Guest by Bram Stoker. This is a collection of short stories by Bram Stoker. The title story is sort of a deleted scene from Dracula. And I read one of the stories from this book for last year's Halloween stream. It was called The Squaw. And I think people really enjoyed that one. Then, if you like poetry, we have Ebony and Crystal by Clark Ashton Smith. He was contemporary of H.P. Lovecraft. The next one isn't horror, but it's definitely quite creepy. Glowworm, which was the first published story from Harlan Ellison. His first published story, and one of the very few that is in the public domain. Then we have The Affair at Grover Station by Willa Cather. And this is a ghost story set around 1900 New Year's Eve up in northern Colorado. And earlier this year, I read that short story at the actual Grover Station in Grover, Colorado. And that was a great experience. It was part of a fundraiser for the museum up there. Then we've got the novel Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. I know Harlan Ellison would often berate people if they said Dr. Jekyll. Apparently you're supposed to say Dr. Jekyll. But that's another recent addition to the site. Then we've got The Most Dangerous Game by Richard Connell. Again, not horror, but definitely suspenseful. And if you have seen the excellent movie Zodiac, the David Fincher film, you'll know that the most dangerous game comes up in that movie, where one of the suspects, one of the men suspected of being the Zodiac killer, mentions that it's one of his favorite stories. So, but that's up on the site as well. So those are all other excellent books you can read. But there's one more, and that is the subject of tonight's live reading. Tonight's reading is going to be from The Monk by Matthew Gregory Lewis. You can find this on our website by going to nantucketebooks.com/monk. This is a Gothic novel from 1796. Matthew Gregory Lewis was born into a very wealthy family, but he always had a passion for reading and writing, and the story is that he wrote this book in an astonishingly short period of time. It just flowed out of him, and it became it was one of the best sellers of its time, much to the chagrin of his family. The novel is about the monk Ambrosio, who is the most revered monk in his country, and sort of about how he comes to the attention of some very strange forces of darkness who seem literally hell-bent on corrupting him. There are many other characters in this. It's a long book, but it's quite fascinating, and it has everything you could possibly want out of a Gothic novel. It was even been praised by Stephen King, so it has his endorsement. He talked about it in his great nonfiction book, Danse Macabre, his review of the horror genre. And this is what... this is from chapter 3, and Stephen King is talking about how the three really essential horror stories are Dracula, Frankenstein, and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So he's talking about those are the essential ones. Then he goes on to say, in the most unkind of critical lights, all three can be seen as no more than popular novels of their day, with little to distinguish them from novels roughly similar. The Monk by M.G. Lewis, for instance, or Wilkie Collins's Armadale. Books largely forgotten except by teachers of Gothic fiction who occasionally pass them on to students who approach them warily and then gulp them down. And I can attest to that. This is a book I listened. It has an excellent audiobook, which is built into the edition on the site, and I just got engrossed in it. It's one of those books. This happens to me sometimes where I really say to myself, okay, I need to put this down, because if I don't, I will be up all night listening to this, and I'm not going to get any sleep, and it'll ruin the next day. I think those are some of the best books I come across. And thought of what I wanted to share from The Monk, and I decided that I would share a ballad that comes later in the story. The book has a number of poems interspersed throughout it. And the poem that I'm going to read from The Monk is called Alonso the Brave and Fair Imogen. It takes about 5 minutes. I learned this for an event I did at work. Got to perform it. And it's a poem that is served well by reading aloud. So, with the sun finally set out here, I hope you're warm and safe in your homes, and I want you to close your eyes and let your imagination run wild as we read this short and haunting little ghost, this paranormal ballad. Alonso the Brave and Fair Imogen. A warrior so bold and a virgin so bright conversed as they sat on the green. They gazed on each other with tender delight. Alonso the Brave was the name of the knight. The maid's was the fair Imogen. And oh, said the youth, since tomorrow I go to fight in a far distant land, your tears for my absence soon leaving to flow, some other will court you, and you will bestow on a wealthier suitor your hand. Oh, hush these suspicions, fair Imogen said, offensive to love and to me. For if ye be living or if ye be dead, I swear by the Virgin that none in your stead shall husband of Imogen be. If e'er I by lust or by wealth led aside forget my Alonso the brave, God grant that to punish my falsehood and pride, your ghost at the marriage may sit by my side, may tax me with perjury, claim me as bride, and bear me away to the grave. To Palestine hastened our hero so bold, his love she lamented him sore. But scarce had a 12-month elapsed, when behold, a baron all covered with jewels and gold arrived at fair Imogen's door. His treasure, his presence, his spacious domain soon made her untrue to her vows. He dazzled her eyes, he bewildered her brain, he caught her affection so light and so vain, and carried her home as his spouse. And now had the marriage been blessed by the priest, the revelry now was begun, the tables they groaned with the weight of the feast, nor yet had the laughter and merriment ceased, when the bell of the castle tolled 1. Then first with amazement fair Imogen found that a stranger was placed by her side. His air was terrific, he uttered no sound, he spoke not, he moved not, he looked not around, but earnestly gazed on the bride. His visor was closed and gigantic his height, his armor was sable to view. All pleasure and laughter were hushed at his sight. The dogs as they eyed him drew back in affright. The lights in the chamber burned blue. His presence all bosoms appeared to dismay. The guests sat in silence and fear. At length spoke the bride while she trembled, I pray, Sir Knight, that your helmet aside you would lay, and deign to partake of our cheer. The lady is silent, the stranger complies, his visor lies slowly unclosed. O God! What a sight met fair Imogen's eyes! What words can express her dismay and surprise, when a skeleton's head was exposed? All present then uttered a terrified shout, all turned with disgust from the scene. The worms they crept in and the worms they crept out, they sported his eyes and his temples about, while the spectre addressed Imogen. Behold me, thou false one, behold me, he cried. Remember Alonso the brave. God grants that to punish thy falsehood and pride, my ghost at thy marriage may sit at thy side, should tax thee with perjury, claim thee as bride, and bear thee away to the grave. Thus saying, his arms round the lady he wound, while loudly she shrieked in dismay, then sank with his prey through the wide yawning ground, nor ever again was fair Imogen found, or the spectre that bore her away. Not long lived the baron, and none since that time to inhabit the castle presume. For chronicles tell that by order sublime there Imogen suffers the pain of her crime, and mourns her deplorable doom. At midnight 4 times in each year does her sprite, when mortals in slumber are bound, arrayed in her bridal apparel of white, appear in the hall with the skeleton knight, and shriek as he whirls her around. While they drink out of skulls newly torn from the grave, dancing round them the spectres are seen. Their liquor is blood, and this horrible stave they howl, to the health of Alonso the brave, and his consort, the fair Imogen. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it. It's definitely fun to perform, and it does work well when read aloud. couple other things I wanted to mention before we get to the Q&A, if there are any questions. The first thing, I will be in a video later this by the end of the month. It's something I'm very excited about. I won't tell you exactly what it is, but I can tell you it is from Software Agents HQ channel on YouTube, and this was a bit of writing that I had wanted to do for them for quite some time. Finally decided to make a go of it this year, and I'm very pleased with how it turned out. I wrote it and narrated that section, and they've been hard at work putting it to adding some video to it. And so when that is available, I will look forward to sharing it with all of you. I think it's going to turn out really well. So that's the first thing. Second thing is I am going to be publishing a new short story next month. Something I wrote earlier this summer, and I can tell you a little bit about the origins of it. A couple years ago, I read a short story collection by a guy named Dennis Etchison. He is not well remembered these days. He died not too long ago, but he was a good friend of Stephen King at one time, and he helped edit Danse Macabre, the book I quoted from earlier. And there was a short story that I read in that book that I really liked, and I recommended it to people, but perhaps this doesn't bode too well for me. But what happened, I read it again, and I found out that there's some things I had misread about the story, and that actually the version that I had in my head of this story, the version I thought I read, ended up being a little bit better than the other one. There are some other outstanding short stories in that collection that I would recommend, but this one, I posted online that what I thought I read ended up being better. And a guy named Benjamin Holland, or Amin Holland, I should say, he told me, well, you should write what you thought the version you wanted to have read. And I was going through some writer's block, and I said, okay, I'll do that. And so I ended up writing this story. It was called Signpost Up Ahead, based on many night drives through the Utah desert that I had growing up. And just sort of thinking about that landscape and how it can be at once very boring and monotonous, but it can also be a little bit scary out there. And so this is a story sort of about that. And I feel good about it, and I'll look forward to sharing that again with all of you. We'll do another reading of it. So those are my two updates. I'll be in a video from Software Agents HQ, which I'm really looking forward to. I'll share that link with you. And then we got a new short story coming up next month. And that's going to be about it. I will check here if there were any questions. Let's see here. I hope you all enjoyed it. Hope you're having a good end of October. Get some good trick-or-treaters out wherever you are. And if you have any other commentary for me, just send it to me after the stream. I'll be saving a recording of this, and I'll definitely I'll excerpt the poetry reading as well. So anyway, thank you all for tuning in, and I'll see you next month. Thank you.